With the release of Crash Bandicoot 4, flashes and memories from past Crash games have been blurring back into my mind. As a kid who had been forced out of Nintendo's realm and thrust into Sony's unfamiliar PlayStation landscape, they're what I latched onto to fill the Mario void. The energetic forward-moving progression, engaging platforming, and good level design, combined with captivating environments, made for one of the best games to come out for the PS1. These elements have been incorporated into many games that have been praised over the years. Every early Mario title, the Donkey Kong Country trilogy, the various Sonic the Hedgehog games, Super Metroid, among many others, all have gameplay, level design, environmental details, and precise controls nailed down. They are all fascinating to delve into and see how each balances these gaming fundamentals. But what makes the original Crash Bandicoot game so important is when it came out. In the mid-1980s, home console gaming was reborn in North America. Consoles looked modern and high-tech. Wood grain was no longer. The Nintendo Entertainment System ushered in a new generation. The gray and black box with red accents became the go-to gaming console that took over, and made the Nintendo name synonymous with gaming. NES games didn't require as much imagination or screen overlays to fill in the graphical gaps. Games looked more or less like what they were supposed to be. The game that cemented Nintendo as an overall leader of the industry was Super Mario Bros. The very first Mario game was a massive success. It propelled the side-scrolling style of game into the public eye. Other game developers wanted something similar, and soon side-scrollers were made by almost all of them. Mario became the mascot for Nintendo and gaming in general. It's because of him that Nintendo has sold so many consoles over the decades. His image is so powerful that Nintendo has used Mario games as launch titles to sell their new systems, often being the packing game with the console. Super Mario Bros. Spawned a sequel in Japan, known as The Lost Levels in North America, as we didn't get to see it until Super Mario All-Stars released for the Super Nintendo. Instead of The Lost Levels, Super Mario Bros. 2 was released, being a reskin of a whole other game entirely. But that didn't matter. It was a Mario game. A different Mario game, but Mario nonetheless. Super Mario Bros. 3 would be a return to form. These three games sold exceedingly well for Nintendo, making the NES a must for people wanting to jump in on home console gaming. It didn't take long before other companies saw this mascot formula and decided they could do better. Many gaming companies tried various mascots like Bonk, Alex Kidd, and Bubsy. None of them were successful, except for one. During the incredible console wars of the 1990s, Sega would rise to the challenge and created one of the most beloved characters in all of gaming, Sonic the Hedgehog. Sega would go on to rival Nintendo's mighty throne, and they did it incredibly well. I don't know of anyone that didn't think Sonic was cool. He was fast, wore awesome shoes, and had great hair. Who didn't find this gameplay appealing at first glance? Just like Nintendo, Sega packed this game in with the console, and it worked. Sonic the Hedgehog helped Sega gain significant ground in the gaming market. Sega and Nintendo competed against each other through these two mascots, though they weren't the only games or characters that each developer had in the market. Sega had many other great franchises, like the Shinobi series, the Streets of Rage games, and Gunstar Heroes. Nintendo also had other game franchises like The Legend of Zelda, Metroid, and the Donkey Kong Country games. But there's no denying the first games many people remember from the 90s are Super Mario World and Sonic the Hedgehog 2. These characters were the definition of gaming during this time. When the Nintendo 64 and Sega Saturn were announced, everyone was excited to see where these two characters would go. But something happened around the same time. There was a new gaming console entering the market, and it was made by Sony. Sony had been known for their high-quality electronics. A gaming console made by them seemed like a perfect fit. The PlayStation came about because of a failed partnership between Sony and Nintendo. Sony had been involved in the development of a CD add-on for the Super Nintendo. When that partnership went south, instead of abandoning the idea, Sony continued development on their own, eventually arriving on what we know today as the PS1. It has a boxy design, but it isn't unpleasing to the eye. Just like Nintendo and Sega's upcoming consoles, the PlayStation was taking the leap into 3D gaming. At the time, these games looked great. It was amazing being able to move in any direction. Game characters weren't tethered to a single plane. Game discs were also revolutionary, having a bigger storage capacity to that of the standard cartridge, meaning developers could give players a bigger experience. But Sony lacked what Nintendo and Sega had, and that is a legacy. Mario and Sonic are gaming icons, easily the most recognizable video game characters of all time. Sega created Sonic as a response to Nintendo's Mario. Mario fell into the mascot role with the astounding success of the first Super Mario Bros. Game, a totally different game than what he had originally appeared on. Mario gave Nintendo leverage when they wanted to push a new game or console. Some of the most timeless games are Mario titles. The first three are easily ranked as some of the best NES games, Mario 3 in particular being the favorite among many today. Mario's foray into 16-bit gaming on the Super Nintendo pushed his image even higher as it was the packing game with the console. Many others consider Super Mario World the absolute pinnacle of 2D side-scrollers. Sonic is in many Sega Genesis games that are right up there with Mario when it comes to gaming prowess, most notably in Sonic 1, 2, and 3, along with Sonic and Knuckles. Sony had a problem. They didn't have a mascot they could use in order to appeal to the large install base of people who look to play those types of games. This ended up spawning many characters that vied for the coveted role. Many were directed toward a younger audience, while others were aimed toward more mature players. Sweet Tooth from Twisted Metal was very much a figurehead for Sony's PlayStation. There are 4 main Twisted Metal games on the PS1. Lara Croft from Tomb Raider was very heavily associated with the PlayStation, even though you could play those games on almost all platforms, besides Nintendo. The first Tomb Raider was even released on the Sega Saturn before it was available on the PS1. But these weren't the mascots they needed to bring in the core platforming audience console gaming was centered around. There were people who were looking for something like Mario or Sonic. I personally fell into this category. During this time, it was common to only have one gaming console in the household. This is why the 16-bit console war is so highly remembered. At least this is what it was like with all my friends. Whichever console was chosen, it was there for the long haul. I was very young during this gaming generation, which meant that my older brother got more say in which console we got. Because his friends had recently picked up PlayStations, this is the console that ended up in our living room. At the time, I didn't think much of it. I was just happy to be playing current games. But most games for the PlayStation seemed to be aimed at a more mature audience. I yearned to play something that was reminiscent of a Super Nintendo game, as that was the console we had just replaced. This, however, led me to play classics like Metal Gear Solid, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, Tekken 3, Tomb Raider 1 and 2, Parappa the Rappa, and the Twisted Metal games. Though these are all great games, they didn't scratch that platforming itch. Luckily, I got my hands on a bunch of demo discs. It seemed like every disc had at least one game or character that was trying to fill that role. Games like the Jersey Devil, Gex, and Croc. Croc specifically was everywhere. It was heavily advertised on TV. I ended up getting it for Christmas one year. It didn't fill the void. A year before I got Croc, I played Mario 64 on an N64 demo unit at Toys R Us. It was amazing, and I wanted something like it. Though not the same, there was one that could offer a similar Mario and Sonic experience. And that was Crash Bandicoot. Crash looked and acted the part with his cartoony character model, bright colors, and goofy demeanor. Crash Bandicoot released the same year as Super Mario 64. Mario 64 set the bar for 3D platformers. I knew that firsthand because of the demo I played. Crash Bandicoot isn't really like Super Mario 64. It has a similar look and is somewhat reminiscent of it, but it's not fully a 3D platformer. Some have gone on to call this type of game a 2.5D platformer, meaning its gameplay is both 3D and 2D. It's true that Crash can maneuver in 3D space, but he's locked between 2 invisible walls that progress the game forward. This seems like it's in a 3D space, but you can't just wander off into the jungle and discover what's beyond the path. It's very much like a 2D platformer that has a predetermined way you need to go. The bonus stages alone are what you could have expected to see in a previous generation platformer. This game also brought and expanded on many of the common platforming elements. Enemies can be defeated by jumping on them. This has been around since the very beginning. But Crash can also perform a spin that will also take out the enemies, which was something different and gave options to every situation. These 2 maneuvers are also used to break open boxes that hold the game's many collectibles and checkpoints. The boxes come in a few varieties. The most common box is just that, a box. There's another box that allows you to jump on it multiple times to collect goods with every bounce. There are other boxes marked with the TNT logo. This lets you know that they're dangerous. Though if they're activated, they'll warn you how long you have before giving up their surprise. There are also metal boxes with an exclamation point on them. When hit, these fill white outlined areas with a box. The boxes marked with a C indicate that you've reached a checkpoint. Make sure to break these ones open. The Wumpa fruit is the main collectible in the game, and what will most likely be in the boxes. Just like the coins in Mario games, if you collect 100, you'll be rewarded with an extra life. Another item found in the boxes is the Aku Aku mask. This mask will give Crash an extra hit point. If you collect 2 of these masks, he'll be rewarded with an additional hit point. The real fun comes when you get a third mask. This will give Crash temporary invincibility, much like the star in Mario games. Once the invincibility runs out, he goes back to having 2 hit points. If you manage to break open all the boxes in a level, you will be awarded a gem. If you fail to break open every box, you get to see all the missed boxes break over Crash's head. But the most memorable things about this game are the levels themselves. Much like the Donkey Kong Country games on the Super Nintendo, Crash Bandicoot has believable level environments and sound design. They don't look hyper-realistic, but they do sell that this is in a living world. Levels like Road to Nowhere and the High Road feature bridges that are surrounded by fog. One slip could lead to who knows where. The Lost City has Crash navigating old ruins. There's also the mandatory jungle and factory stages. But the levels I remember the most are the ones that centered around Crash navigating a stream. Unlike most games that would use blue water, these stages use black and gray. This color palette is more like real life. The second I saw it, I thought it could have been real. All the streams I had ever visited look similar to this. It's small touches like this that really push a game over the top for me. I know this and many other games aren't going for realism, but it does help immerse a player when there's something to relate to during gameplay. Crash Bandicoot helped bridge the gap from the 16-bit era of gaming to the 32-bit era, especially for those that had come from Nintendo over to Sony. It's 3D, but not all the way, creating a small step toward a fully 3D platformer. It was important for many who craved a new platforming game but didn't have the access to other consoles at the time. The energetic forward-moving progression, engaging platforming, and good level design, combined with captivating environments, made for one of the best games to come out for the PS1. The timing was perfect for this character to blossom. But it's not just when it came out that made it great. It has the elements that many great games have that have been praised over the years. It has gameplay, level design, environmental details, and precise controls nailed down. For many who had left Nintendo and looked to have something comparable, this game was the bridge that made the transition easier. It was the thread that helped so many players into the PlayStation fabric. But above all, it's a great game.